If you have someone in your life who keeps showing up, quietly, steadily, listen to me. Because I'm 90 years old, and I learned this too late. Love can sit right beside you for decades, and you still won't see it. Not because you're a bad person, because you get used to it. Like the ticking of a clock in the next room. And then one day, the clock stops, and the silence feels sharp enough to bite. I'm in an assisted living place outside town. It's clean, the staff are kind, and there's a chair by the window that has basically become part of me. From here I can see a parking lot, a skinny strip of grass, and the maple tree that turns red every fall like it's trying to prove it still matters. Most days I sit here and watch people walk in and out, families carrying flowers, kids holding their mom's hand, old men shuffling beside old women. And I keep thinking the same thought. I had real love right there, close enough to touch, and I treated it like background. Her name was Clara. I knew her for 67 years, and I didn't understand what she was to me until she wasn't there to be anything at all. I met Clara in 1958. I was 23, fresh out of the army, and convinced life would reward me just for being upright and working hard. I had a city job, sanitation at first, then the water department. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Steady mattered back then. I rented a small room from an older widow named Mrs. Dwyer. She ran her house like a ship. Dinner at 6, quiet at 9. No female visitors, her way of saying, "Don't bring trouble here." Clara lived next door with her mother. Clara wasn't the kind of woman who walked into a room and made heads turn. Practical shoes, hair pinned back, calm face, not loud, but she was always doing something, sweeping steps, hanging laundry, working on a tiny garden like it was a serious job. One evening I came home with a blister on my hand from a shovel. Clara saw it and said, "No hello, no small talk. You need to clean that before it gets infected." I said, "It's fine." She looked at me like I was an idiot, calmly, like she'd seen this kind of stubborn before, and walked inside. She came back with a tin of ointment and held it out. "Put this on it." I felt annoyed, like I was being mothered. Then I felt relieved because somebody noticed. I said, "What do I owe you?" Clara said, "Nothing. Just don't be dumb." That was Clara. That was her version of kindness. Plain, direct, no fancy wrapping. And I didn't recognize it as love. I just thought she was Clara. Over time, we talked more. Simple talk. Weather, neighbors, bills, her mother's cough that never fully went away. Clara worked at a small insurance office downtown. Every day she came home on the bus carrying groceries with one arm and her purse tucked under the other. If I offered help, she'd say, "I've got it." She always had it. And here's the part I didn't understand at 23. I thought I wanted a woman who would lean on me. I thought being needed was the same thing as being loved. Clara didn't lean. So I didn't even consider her in that way. Instead, I dated a girl named Patty who worked at a diner near my job. Patty was fun. Bright lipstick, big laugh. She made me feel like I was somebody. One night I walked Patty home and we passed Clara's porch. Clara was sitting there with her mother. She nodded politely, but her eyes flicked to me, then away, like she'd touched something hot. I noticed it. Then I told myself I imagined it. That's what people do when something real is standing right in front of them. They talk themselves out of it. Patty and I got married. Not rushed, but not thoughtful either. We were young. People did it. That was the next step. Clara came to the wedding with her mother. Simple dress, quiet smile, small envelope in her hand. When she hugged me, She said something that should have weighed more than it did. "Be good to her." I said, "Of course." Clara nodded like she wanted to believe me. Inside the envelope was a $20 check and a note in her handwriting. "For your first grocery trip, don't waste it on steak." Patty laughed and said, "She's bossy." I laughed too. But what I didn't say out loud was the truth. Clara paid attention. She noticed what people needed, even when they didn't ask. That's not bossy. That's care. Patty and I weren't a disaster right away. We just didn't fit as well as we pretended. Patty wanted out, restaurants, travel, being seen. I wanted home, quiet, dinner, the same chair every night. We had a son, Mark, when I was 28, and for a while we tried harder. But Patty got restless. Late nights, friends, then nights she didn't come home at all. I didn't handle it well. I got cold. I got sharp. I used silence like a weapon and called it keeping the peace. Our arguments weren't loud. They were long. The kind that makes a house feel tight. One afternoon, Mark was about 5. Patty had gone out and didn't come back when she said she would. It was getting late. I had work early. Mark was crying because he wanted his mother. And I stood there helpless, because nobody taught men like me how to comfort a kid. We were taught to solve problems, not hold feelings. Then there was a knock at the door. Clara stood there holding a pot. "I made chicken soup," she said. "You look like you're about to fall apart." I felt embarrassed, angry at myself, angry at Patty, angry that Clara could see me so clearly. Clara didn't ask questions. She walked in, set the pot on the stove, and stirred it like she belonged there. Mark wandered into the kitchen, sniffling. Clara crouched a little and said, "Hey, honey, want a bowl?" He nodded. She blew on the spoon before she gave it to him, so he wouldn't burn his mouth. Just that, a small act. But I remember thinking, without knowing why it hurt, she knows how to do this. She knows how to be here. That night wasn't romance. It was love, doing what love does, showing up when something is falling apart. And I still didn't name it. Patty and I divorced when Mark was 8. She moved out of state with another man. She called sometimes, sent birthday cards when she remembered. People told me I was better off. Maybe I was, but better off isn't the same as being okay. I became a man who lived like a machine. Work, dinner, laundry, sleep, repeat. I did what I had to do and avoided the rest. Clara kept coming around in small ways. "Your collar's fraying," she'd say. "Give me the shirt." "I can buy a new one," I'd say. "Waste of money," she'd answer. "Sit down." She'd sit at my kitchen table with a needle and thread, sewing like it was nothing. The TV news would murmur in the background, and for a few minutes my house would feel like it had a heartbeat again. Sometimes she'd talk about her day. Sometimes she wouldn't, but she was there. And I didn't ask why. Because asking would have meant admitting that what she was giving me wasn't normal neighbor stuff. It was personal. And personal scared me. When I was 52, I married again. A woman named Linda from work. Linda was kind, steady, practical. We had a decent life. Clara came to that wedding too. She brought towels and said to Linda, "These are the kind that actually dry you." Linda laughed. Clara smiled. But Clara didn't stay long. Left before cake. Said she had work early. I watched her walk away and felt something tighten in my chest. I told myself it was nothing. Then, later, Clara dated a widower named Arthur. I told myself I was happy for her. But the first time I saw them together at the grocery store, I felt something ugly and honest. Loss. Not jealousy like a teenager. More like realizing someone had picked up something you misplaced, and you couldn't even explain what it was. Clara introduced me like I was just a name. "This is Frank." Arthur shook my hand. "Heard a lot about you." Clara's fingers tightened on her purse strap, and I stood there by the apples, staring at fruit like it might tell me what I'd done wrong. Clara and Arthur didn't last. He wanted her to move in. Clara didn't want to leave her house. She told me once, sitting at my table sewing a button, "I spent too many years taking care of people. I want my own space." I said, "So you'll be alone?" Clara looked up. "I'm not afraid of alone." Then she went back to her sewing. I didn't ask what she was afraid of. I wish I had. Linda died when I was 71, a heart attack in a grocery store parking lot. One moment she was complaining about tomato prices. Next moment she was gone. After the funeral, I went home, and the quiet felt different this time. Heavier. Like the house was too big for one old man. That first evening, I sat with the TV on low and realized something scary. I didn't have one person I could call who would come sit with me, just to sit. Then there was a knock. Clara, of course. She walked in, set a covered dish on the counter, and said, "Eat." "I'm not hungry," I said. She looked at me. "Eat anyway." So I did. She washed the dish, wiped the counter, moved around my kitchen like she knew it, because she did. She'd been in my life longer than either of my wives. Then she sat across from me and said, "You did good by Linda." "I don't know," I said. "You showed up," Clara said. "That counts." Then she asked me something no one else ever asked. "Do you want company tonight, or do you want to be alone?" I didn't want to need her, but I didn't want her to leave. So I said, small, "Stay a little." She nodded. All right. She stayed until midnight. We talked about old neighbors, Mark's kids, the power outage in '78, normal things, breathing things. When she stood to leave, she paused at my door and said, "Frank, don't wait so long to let people be with you." Then she left, and I sat there staring at the doorknob like it had moved on its own. I kept waiting for the right time to tell Clara what I was starting to understand. I thought, I'll say it when I'm sure. I'll say it when it won't sound foolish coming from an old man. I thought there would be time. Then Clara fell on her back steps, broke her hip. I knew because the ambulance lights flashed against my window. I walked outside and watched them carry her out on a stretcher. Clara looked small, strapped down like that, but she still tried to protect me. She saw my face and said, "Don't look like that. It's just bones." All I could say was, "Clara." She said, "Call Mark. Tell him I'm fine." Even then, she was thinking about my son. In the hospital after surgery, she made jokes about the food and complained about cheerful nurses. But late in the day, when the room got quiet, she looked tired in a way I'd never seen. I brought her a small radio because she said the room felt dead. I fumbled with the dial. Clara watched me and whispered, almost fond, "You're still terrible with radios." I laughed, and then the laughter died, and something honest pushed up in my throat. I said, "Clara, I should have seen you." Her face softened like someone setting down something heavy. She didn't say, "It's okay." She didn't say, "I know." She said, "I didn't ask to be seen, Frank. I asked to be met." Met. In the middle. Not taken for granted. Not treated like a permanent safety net. Met. That sentence followed me into every quiet room after that. Clara eventually moved into this same assisted living place. Her house became too hard. Steps, ice, laundry, everything. For a year, we lived down the hall. People assumed we were an old couple and smiled like we were something cute to look at. Clara hated that. "We're not a show," she'd mutter. But she didn't move away from me. One night, I walked her to her door, and I couldn't stop myself. "Clara, did you ever love me?" I hated how small my voice sounded. She looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding whether the truth would help or hurt. Then she said, "Yes." One word, that was all. My throat tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" Clara's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "I did," she said. "You just weren't listening." Then she went inside and closed the door. 6 months later, she got pneumonia. It turned into something worse. Fast. I sat beside her bed in the hospital while she slept most of the time. On the last day, she opened her eyes and whispered, "You all right?" She was dying, and she was checking on me. I nodded. "I'm here." I wanted to say everything. I wanted to apologize for my blindness. I wanted to tell her she was the best part of my life that I didn't deserve. But she could barely breathe. So I said the simplest true thing. "Thank you." Clara closed her eyes. She died that night. And the love that had been right beside me was gone. And the silence was sharp enough to bite. I can't go back and choose differently. I can't give Clara the life she might have had if I'd been brave when we were young. All I have are memories. Clara with ointment in her hand. Clara blowing on soup for my boy. Clara sewing at my table like she belonged there, because she did. Clara saying, "Meet me." So if you have someone steady in your life, someone who shows up, who notices, who stays, please don't treat them like background. Don't make them do all the walking. Meet them halfway, while they're still right there.